My name is Daniel. I am a full telepath, meaning I can communicate with pretty much anything at length, with depth, full conversational words, feeling an exchange of emotional presence so I can become aware of exactly, whoever I'm tuning into. And sort of more transcendent level of thought ball, sort of an ability to sort of receive an energetic, feels like a sphere of meaning, depth, communication, experience all at once that opens a bit like a flower.
I invite you to transcend what you've known as normal. Welcome to Wildflowing Fire. Welcome to Wildflowing Fire.
I channeled Thoth almost exclusively for others because it is very intense connecting in this way, and to do it and change frequently generates a lot of activity. Today is encouraging me to give more. So I'm not just going to channel, I'm going to try to show you what it's like to converse. I haven't really done this. The point is that, normally for years and years, I talk with him. I'm not just channeling by any means. I'm having full conversations. I'm bringing my deepest questions to him. I still do all the time. Whenever I have a big question or choice or shift in perspective, I go, hey, what do you think? It's almost invariably very helpful. Today I feel a sadness, just a tiredness really. I've been in tune with a new world that isn't new, that I feel existing. And so now today I want to ask Thoth to reveal to me where I'm going, where we can go together, how to transform into a new way, and at the same time being at peace, as much as we can or need to learn to be at peace with the world as it is. So the first thing he's saying is, don't let them give you too much. That people watch me and lose their sense of reality so much that you, in some cases, lose your ability to reason and make clear choices, and that's not good for you. And so it's important that you know me as a person with failings, and I'm just doing the best I can at this, trying to be even more real, to reflect to you, so I don't hold some sense of inaccessibility. He says that's enough. He says, now tell them why I'm here. So he's showing me a bridge of sorts, that he's reaching out of a consciousness space. And there's a clear implication, like this isn't another place physically. So when we use a physical metaphor, we immediately lose some of the truth. It's vibrational, that he lives in another vibrational field, and he reaches, so what he's showing me is halfway across a bridge. And that he's taught me to meet him here, and that I just kind of live here, I just kind of live here at this halfway point for the longest time. He's saying, I want to come further, but I can't yet, because this is my work, and because it would hurt way too much to live fully where he is, and then return to this and cry for every tree that gets cut by a machine, and cry for every animal that has lost hope. But I don't want to... Well, he's inviting me to share that I actually live on the halfway point of the bridge less, that I have found a deeper peace living in the world as it is with my family over the past 10 years than I used to have. I used to just want to camp at this point on the bridge. He's just saying, tell them more. Well, I used to stay. I just used to stay in this consciousness space where I was essentially out of touch with the world around me fairly significantly, but also I was aware, like beings would pass me, like other beings would pass by where I am and be like, dude, what are you doing? Like, why are you're stuck? You must be stuck. Do you need help? Like strange beings that, I definitely didn't trust for the most part, although many seemed well-intentioned. They just see where I was and be like, you must be stuck. You need our help, right? And I'd be like, no, this is where I stay. And I stayed in this halfway point until I learned to be, realistically, I learned to be far more committed to working with Thoth. And he's encouraging me to tell you that I'm now honoring him as Hermes within my day-to-day consciousness. And that change has brought a lot more light. As Thoth, I've always known him as the one who led me through the darkness, found me in the darkness, helped me be at peace with the darkness. And as Hermes, there's a gentleness. He's asking me to communicate clearly to you that one of the reasons he's played these different roles is specifically to change how the earth works. That as Thoth, he initially held a particular kind of space, a role, and it was a real role that he played in a leadership position. And then when it's not reincarnated, but it's closer to that than anything else we know. He took a new form in angelic presence as Hermes. And in this role, he became a messenger far more. And he's essentially showing me that actually as Mercury, that interpretation is more appropriate, messenger. As Hermes, he was not leading other divine beings in the same way at all. He was playing a very different role, and he wanted to play a very different role. And it actually made it easier for him to be closer to humans. He's saying that's enough. So I want to know how I want to cross this bridge. And he's still saying no. He's still saying no. He's saying, I won't show you more. Tell them what you've seen. So I always see water when I'm tuning into, it's what I experience as a future. It feels like 100 years from now. Maybe 2. And there's a lot of clear sunlight and just water, and it's beautiful water, and there's a noticeable absence of human presence. Yet I look at the shores and there are buildings, but somehow they blend in more. They look like sandstone, maybe clay, but whiter. And there's this incredible sense of, my first instinct is almost always this, like, I'm afraid of how beautiful it is. It's sort of like I feel like I'm tainting it just by being there. And he's telling me I am. And it's okay. It's okay. They can handle it. He's almost smirking, less as you would a child. To a child. There's more. there's always this sense, it's like I have through my mind. I've lived my life with an awareness of murder and bloodshed. I've read fantasy novels. I watched movies about castles and dragons and knights, and countless times watching and imagining a sword hurting a body. When I enter this space, there's such a sense of just that consciousness alone is sick. The ability to conceive of such. And I've delved into this every time, and they say, yes, sometimes people do get sick in this way. And they are treated as sick. Sometimes they have to be hunted and found. They hide. They are treated as sick. There is a role. It is different than police. Police, as we know it, are not needed. There are different roles of mediation and something that looks like a hunter nurse almost. Those who hunt those who are sick. That is enough. And he's saying, see, I'm already showing you more. He says, tell them about the light. The light seems brighter somehow. It's not scary, but it seems brighter somehow. The colors are just it's like they sparkle from within. And they do. He's saying in these times, people learn to see the inner resonance, the spiritual light within all things. It isn't the sun that's brighter. It's that you have added the ability to see spiritual presence from within, and your physical eyes learn to recognize it on a daily basis. That's new. And he's saying, see, I've showed you more already. I'm walking down the street and it's dirt and stone, and he's saying, this is a street in a place people live, and people don't choose to move around as there's a hesitation. He's saying the roads are not paved in the ways you know. He's showing me that there are flying machines that move easily, and so it's not necessary to pave the roads. People value the dirt more, and it's very easy to recreate and flatten it. That's enough. He's saying keep going. So I'm going down a path. And he's saying many of the creatures in the woods hate me because I misunderstand their violence. Now he's saying, tell me what I know. Tell me what I know. Incidentally, having a relationship with him is like my entire existence and thoughts are available. There's no other way to stay connected to him. So you become used to, I've become used to the sense that he can root through my memories, and it's like he sees them. And other beings communicate this way too. It's a relatively common thing. But you have to get used to it. It's a lot to get used to. So he's rooting through it. He's showing me 10 years ago. 10 years ago, I had a dream. And in the dream, there was a lot of deer, and they seemed very sacred. And I was in the woods with them in a house that was kind of part of the woods. It was very intense. And then there was a wild cat that also looked human, that also looked deer. And there was a clear sense that the cat was part of the deer. It was part of the same creation. And there was this general sense of melding back and forth, like the predator of the deer was a part of the deer. That the real unity, the real thing here was something greater than deer or wildcat. It is this, as if a being came to incarnate on earth, a soul family came to incarnate on earth, and when it incarnated as deer and wildcat. Something about like they take turns being the predator, but they aren't the distinction is not in species, the distinction is in relationship. He's saying in an ideal, more ideal time, beings know when it is time for them to die, and they essentially prepare for death in a way that they are not present in the same manner in their body when they die. Even if they're eaten by a carnivore, they don't lose their presence as a spiritual being. In fact, they center in their presence as a spiritual being in a way that it's not to say it doesn't hurt to die or there isn't fear, but that pain and fear are experienced in a very different way. And thus, our sense of the horror of such a death is different, that we've been seeing it in the wrong way. When you know your own spiritual presence and you learn to center with it throughout the course of your life, the preparation for death is not as frightening. It's simply a recognition that you will recenter even more deeply in your spirit, and that there's a joy in this and an excitement in this that is, there's nothing perverse or frightening about it. Death itself is not a thing. It is purely and strictly a transition. And our toxic, he's emphasizing that, our toxic relationship with death is purely a result of our false understanding of our true nature. That it is only in the presence of doubt that you exist beyond this life, that you can even have an idea of death in the form that it's taken in many human societies. I'm sort of channeling, I'm just passing that on. He says that's enough. He's saying most of them do not die through disastrous pain. They simply leave. The birth rate plummets because so many people lose touch with hope. It's not as depressing as I might fear. It's simply they do not see a future that would invite them to have children. And that this is already happening, and it is healthy. It is a reflection of choices that beings are making. It's all in order. He's suggesting that I fear natural disasters because a part of me has longed for change. And sometimes that change comes with the disasters, and I haven't wanted to be aligned with being excited by destruction and chaos. He's commending me for this commitment. It's been challenging for me to recognize that many of the changes I seek come along with disaster. And I've felt at the edge of sort of an elemental reverie, like, yes, the fires are coming to create a new world. And he's saying there's something healthy about this, and that I can learn to experience it without feeling like sick or demonic. Like there's There's no need to find joy in the deaths, but there is need to find joy in the liberation of beings who truly don't want to be here. He's saying far more than I know how to trust. The correct things occur. That even in big disasters, people are led away. That it is far more orchestrated than we realize. And that in so many ways, he's showing me this, the level on which the spiritual songs determine what happens. And that within the spiritual songs, people are experiencing life before we experience life. The true essence, the creative center of this is happening on a plane that we rarely keep our awareness. We're very rarely invited to be, largely because we'd muck it up. Like if we got into the workings, we'd start creating things haphazardly just by daydreaming about them. So it's important to comprehend that our soul does participate in these choices, and thus beings who want to leave are essentially, there's a deep level in which they're choosing to stay in places that are dangerous. And beings who choose to stay are given multiple chances. It's not all like fatalistic and predetermined. Lots of choices, and saying like, do you want to stay? Well, how about you take a day trip over here, and then in the day trip they are brought away from disaster. I'm just being shown this again and again. My uncle and aunt were on a week vacation when Hurricane Katrina came to New Orleans, and they live in New Orleans. Things like that. I was always taught to respect that that's a pattern that is common. He's saying there's more. He's saying we need to trust this. It is one of the most important things to communicate in every direction to everyone. There is a profound and clear difference between predicting the future based strictly in fears. It's like there is a fear, a collective fear energy. Fear collects, the consciousness of fear in a community collects and starts to create scenarios where people are imagining fire sweeping over the town. But realistically, that is not about to happen. It really isn't. And there's a truth to it. And you're not going to make it happen by fearing it in this way. So you can learn to determine that you are experiencing sort of an apocalyptic or terrifying vision of what could happen to you environmentally. A flood's coming or a fire's coming. And you can learn to distinguish. This is a human consciousness feeling. And it's important to recognize that it's a collective feeling. It's generated by many people who are afraid kind of at the same time. And it's roving around in your community, grabbing people's fear. And you need to learn to distinguish this is what's happening to you. And then there's another kind of thing that happens. It's very different when there is an actual disaster. And that kind of warning it contains hope. In fact, hope is the strongest container, because the hope is what would lead you into a different space. That hope comes in the form of song. It's not a song you might recognize, and it's not just auditory. It's a spiritual song. It has a presence, and it pulls you. And then it pulls you with warning, and it pulls you with sort of a more sober recognition. This is coming. This is coming. And there's a relentlessness to it that is not fraught with terror in the same way. And the terror is something that humans bring, and it is often something when it combines with this kind of disaster story, it's almost entirely representative of inner conflict. So people actually have a degree of if not a death wish, they're so sick of the way things are that part of them is actually excited to watch the way things are be destroyed. But this part is typically unconscious. People have been forging through their lives for so long, they don't recognize that they hate it. They resent the way things are. This is a place where terror can emerge, and it can emerge in the face of real disaster. But you can learn to distinguish it, and you can learn to recognize when it's coming to life at a time that you don't need to focus on. In fact, you could be a real blessing to yourself and your communities by learning to dissolve it, by learning to stare at it and say, hey, is this true? This is a real theme lately, to say, hey, is this true? He's inviting this to be a strong emphasis going forward, because there is no way to be invited more deeply into the way things will be and can be without being conscious of how to most clearly navigate through these fears and even the disasters that will be present with us for a while.